How do you spot a predator when they look like everyone else? They don't hide in the shadows, they blend in. And childcare has become their perfect hunting ground.
The offenders are giving us the picture. They're painting the picture for us. The offenders are choosing early childcare as a conducive place for the abuse of children. So the offenders are speaking for us. They are telling us that we have a massive problem.
Until now, families have been kept in the dark. We've found almost 150 childcare workers accused or convicted of child sexual abuse or inappropriate conduct. But with less than 2% of offenders convicted, over the years, many thousands have got away with it. And with access to the largest ever database of childcare files, 200,000 pages of documents previously kept from public view, we've uncovered what's really been going on.
It's lack of staffing. It is a lack of regulatory response. It's all of these factors coming together that create all of these gaps for these pedophiles to wriggle through.
They're hunting in packs. So we don't have a lone wolf. We have a wolf in a pack, and they are strategic, they are vicious, and they are supporting each other as they hunt.
The psychology of these people is to seek out opportunity, and childcare centres represent an excellent opportunity for them.
These monsters are thriving in these spaces because it's so easy for them to.
Do you think Australians have any idea how pervasive it is?
I don't think that the public has any idea how bad this situation is.
I've been investigating childcare for more than a year, and some of the things I've seen, I'll never forget. Safeguards are crumbling, predators have found their way in, and they're preying on our children. There's so many things we can't show you. It's too graphic, too distressing, but it's happening. This story isn't easy to watch, but it's too important to turn away. Ashley Griffith is one of Australia's worst pedophiles. His case lays bare how deeply the childcare system is failing. He worked undetected in New South Wales and Queensland childcare centres for almost 20 years, raping and sexually abusing 65 children in Queensland. And we reveal his Sydney playground, where he's accused of abusing 23 kids.
Ashley Griffith, probably one of the worst cases I've worked on.
Drew Viney helped catch Griffith. This is the first time he's talking about the case. He worked at the AFP's National Victim Identification Team, an elite unit that works with authorities worldwide to unmask predators and identify child victims used in abuse material.
He was someone who I remember sitting in an interview with him after his arrest and asked him outright, how many children do you think you've abused during your time in childcare centres? And he said straight away, 100 children. I thought he was exaggerating, self-aggrandising. Unfortunately, the inquiries that led after that showed that he wasn't exaggerating. Almost all of his victims were 2 to 3 year old girls. He's vaguely charming in his dealings with people, but he also presents himself as someone who genuinely cares about the children. A laughable concept to regular people, but on some level, people like him believe that that's how it is for him.
Griffith meticulously catalogued his abuse, uploading videos to the dark web. It enabled police to identify blankets in the abuse material.
The bedsheets itself were found to be made by a small company in southeast Queensland that did them on small orders for childcare centres. We spoke to the provider and they gave us a list of childcare centres that they had sold the sheets to.
Viney started to visit childcare centres, which opened up his eyes to problems in the sector.
The childcare centres would swear black and blue that they would never have the opportunity to do things like that. There would always be at least 2 people on when dealing with the children, but the videos later showed that he acted with complete impunity. And that's what does surprise me and concern me, is that the ratios aren't what they should be, especially given the amount of money that is provided to childcare centres, not only by the government, by the parents who are funding the operations.
In Queensland, Griffith was sentenced to life in November 2024 with a 27-year non-parole period. He's yet to face trial in New South Wales. For legal reasons and to protect her child, we can't identify this mother. But Griffith abused her daughter at Explore and Develop Camperdown in inner Sydney, where he worked between 2014 and 2017. The centre is now under new ownership.
It's a life sentence now for me and for her. It's always there. It's always present. You can't fully trust. You question every decision you ever made. Did I do the right thing? For a long time, I didn't blame myself at all. I thought, well, I did what every other mother does and got back to work and put my child in care and trusted that people were looking after her appropriately. But as the years have gone on, I do blame myself, and I do wish I had made different life choices.
This mother had no idea her child had been abused until she received a call from the police. And then they went through what information they had compiled.
Yes, that they had absolutely conclusive evidence that my daughter had been a victim of Ashley Griffith.
Understaffed, under-supervised centres gave him the freedom to offend, setting up tripods, phones and cameras, filming some abuse for 15, 20 and even 30 minutes without anyone noticing.
There were multiple videos of the kids just playing naked.
If you've got the ability to take out your phone and put your phone up on the side and start filming, then no one's there watching you.
Griffith is what we call a preferential pedophile, and he's also exclusive. And he doesn't have any kind of noteworthy history of relationships with adults. So he's someone that is very, very focused on a particular age group. And in this case, it's not only children, but it's very, very young children.
Forensic and clinical psychologist Dr. Michael Burke is a global authority on child sex offenders. He founded and then led the US Marshals Behavioural Analysis Unit for more than a decade and has consulted with the FBI, CIA and Australian authorities to profile and track some of the world's most dangerous predators. Most people think of pedophiles as these creepy people that they could spot a mile off. Or are they hiding in plain sight?
No, they're hiding in plain sight. Absolutely.
Dr. Burke has interviewed more than 1,200 child sex offenders to help understand how they think and identify patterns in grooming and online activity, so potential offenders can be detected earlier. These are some of them. Ordinary people with everyday jobs, until the mask slips and you see what's really going on.
I've had a lot of fantasies of having a wife, having children, just so I can abuse them. And the fantasy would be my wife passes away for some reason that I get to take care of the children. I take them into a secluded area where I'm the only one that they could depend on.
Before you came to prison, what would be your preferred age range for males? Like how young?
Mostly with the youngest age possible. One or two of my victims, infant victims, there were male. And it was 4-year-old male. So as young as possible because of the deviant attraction.
And for females, would you also be aroused to infant female?
Yes. The more defenseless and vulnerable they are, the more attracted I am. Anytime I saw an opportunity, I would try for it.
Okay. How many times do you have an opportunity like in a day?
I would say the peak would probably be about 15, 16 a week.
When you're in front of some of these offenders, it'll make the hair stick up on the back of your neck. You're speaking to a human being that is very dark. They commit acts of evil, and they sometimes not only are ambivalent, but they relish the acts.
What's playing out now in Australia worries him. Why would a predator be drawn to working in childcare?
Predators are drawn to childcare for the same reason that fishermen are drawn to the place where there's the most fish. The predators are going to look for any prey-rich environment, any environment in which there's children, and then there's a decreased chance of being detected, right? And they also trade information online with each other. So once they find somewhere where the rules aren't enforced, or a system like childcare where people are getting away with all kinds of things, that goes viral in pedophilic networks.
What do these faces tell you?
Predators don't have horns and speak monster. They are like you and I. Their interests are kept in a very secretive, deviant compartment, and it's very easy to miss.
For months, we've been tracking pedophiles in childcare. What shocked us most is the number of them. Our investigation identified 148 childcare workers alleged or convicted of child sexual abuse or inappropriate conduct. 42 are convicted. Right now, 14 are facing charges, like 26-year-old Joshua Brown, accused of 73 offences, including sexually penetrating children. There's another 94. Some caught, some banned, some got away with it, and we can't tell you who they are. A whopping 88% of that offending happened at for-profit long day care centres.
It's undeniable, but for-profit providers are overrepresented in the child abuse and neglect statistics in early childcare, and that is certainly the case when it comes to child sexual abuse matters.
Disturbingly, they're just the visible edge of this hidden crisis. Most offenders never face charges, and only a fraction are ever convicted. There are numerous steps before an abuse case makes it through the system. The first two being the child has to know and be able to disclose.
It's very difficult to make some of these cases. Children sometimes don't make the best witnesses. Children sometimes recant. They'll change their stories. And the perpetrators count on that. They count on the fact that this child may come across as less than credible. Many cases drop out before they reach the stage where you would say it's in the official records. 84% of victims never disclose their sexual abuse in their entire life. So we think we're capturing just a small amount.
And in terms of how pervasive they are, do we have any idea how big this is?
estimates range from 1% to 5% of society have some sort of sexual interest in children. That's a scary number. That means out of every 100 people, there's someone that has a sexual interest in children, and that's prepubescent children.
Can they be rehabilitated?
People are desperate for the answer to how can we get rid of this deviance, this scourge. And the answer is, unfortunately, we don't have any solution. The model that we use is not a curative model, it's a management model. With internal management and appropriate external management, we have a prayer of preventing the manifestation of those fantasies and urges.
We've spoken to many parents across the country who say their kids were abused, but the case went nowhere. At one centre, 2 mothers are adamant their kids were sexually abused by the same childcare worker. Their complaints to the centre and police hit a brick wall, and the worker stayed on. This woman is legally prevented from revealing her identity to protect her child.
I said, "Is there anyone at childcare who you don't like?" And sure enough, she said this educator's name. And I said, "Why is that?" And she answered, "Because he touches me." And my heart just sank. And my daughter said, "He told me don't tell anyone." And I think that's when we really knew that this had definitely happened.
And you told the childcare centre?
They focused a lot on the fact that the educator was quite popular with the parents. But we get great reviews about him. The parents love him. We called the police. It's a difficult story. She's not going to tell it to a couple of grown men that she's never met before. One particular woman who, a few months down the track, ended up sending me a text and letting me know that the same thing happened with her son, and her son had disclosed to her that this same educator had sexually abused him.
Why did you decide to speak up?
I want to be able to tell her I did everything I could, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry I handed you over to him. I think that's the hardest image I have to deal with. She was holding on to my clothes, and I had to pry her fingers off one by one to hand her over to her abuser. It feels like such a betrayal. And I want to tell her I'm sorry.
These crimes thrive in naivete, and they thrive in secrecy. These are crimes that occur in darkness. And I don't mean physically, I mean in the darkness of ignorance. People don't like thinking about sex offenders. They don't like thinking about our most vulnerable population being at risk. But in that ignorance and in that silence, in that refusal to step into this world and really see it for what it is, that allows these men to do what they do with almost with impunity. It emboldens them.
You felt very strongly that you needed to tell your story.
We need a wake-up call that this is happening in childcares, that you can't just trust that childcare will look after your child. The child is behind a closed door and you have no idea what's going on behind that closed door.
At another centre, in another state, this mum had a horrific experience in 2020.
She went literally overnight from being a happy-go-lucky little kid to being just depressed and miserable. She started to come home with blood in her underpants. She started to say things to me like, "Mummy, would you lick me?" pointing between her legs. And I just didn't understand what was going on. I didn't understand where this was coming from. And every time we talked to the childcare, we were always brushed aside. It was the day after her 3rd birthday. I had bought her Barbie dolls, and she grabbed the Barbie dolls, she ripped off their clothes, and she started to lick them between the legs, and that was when I knew she had been sexually abused. From the age of 3, she became malnourished, she couldn't eat. She would replay what happened to her again and again. She would replay the abuse. And then she thought I was the perpetrator and she would attack me. And this would happen for hours. And it would happen every day. For years.
How horrific.
So I guess one of the messages is that kids are not resilient like people think they are. They become ill from these things, and it has long-term repercussions, and it steals their childhood.
Did you go to the police?
We went to the police a number of times, and they took a report, but they said they can't get evidence. There's not much they could do. I feel like I am pressing a giant red panic button and nobody cares, and I'm just being told that I'm a stupid, overprotective woman. And more recently, we know of another family who had the same blood in the underpants, removed the child but didn't want to go to the police. There were no men in my daughter's childcare, there were only women. We need to know what's happening behind those closed doors. There is no one stopping these pedophiles. Why wouldn't it keep happening?
We have clear evidence that for-profit providers are an issue here in terms of quality and safety standards.
By law, centres must meet child-to-staff ratios. But with wages the biggest cost, some providers cut corners, leaving children under-supervised. Almost anyone can enrol online and be placed in a centre within days.
We've had a sector that has been so poorly regulated that we've allowed to become dominated by those seeking a profit, that we now have an increasingly casual and precarious workforce. We have undertrained staff, we have centres without enough staff, and we have a culture where reporting is very difficult to do for lots of reasons.
New South Wales Greens MP Abigail Boyd has been working with us for a year to access previously hidden childcare regulatory files.
When you look at the lack of educator training, when you look at the amount of centres that don't have enough staff and the regulator keeps telling them and then allowing them to get away without having enough staff, if you said to me after I'd read all of that, do you think that there will be child sexual abuse in here? Like, obviously. If you know anything about pedophiles, if you know anything about these sorts of predators, they look for scenarios like that. They look for sectors like this. This lack of regulation, this lax approach to allowing these, providers to continue at all costs. It is ripe for pedophiles to come in.
The regulatory files paint a damning picture. Page after page of centres breaking the rules. Poor staffing, ratios breached, and hundreds of centres breaching child safety laws. This is how we found Gillies Educational Childcare Centre. This unremarkable centre operated in the semi-rural suburb of Rossmore, New South Wales. Chris Buckman was banned from childcare in March last year. His centre shut down in November. What's unusual is the centre is on the same block as his house. We tracked him down. How many children over the years would you have looked after?
Thousands. Thousands.
So at the end of last year, your childcare centre, Gillies, was closed down.
Yep.
Why did they do that?
They believed I was a danger to children, a risk to children.
Do you take any responsibility for the closure of the centre? And
Yes, it's totally my responsibility. Totally closed because of me, because I was in charge. When the cat's away, the mice played, and that's why it got closed, because there was no oversight, making sure the girls were doing their job as per the regulations.
Since 2013, his centre never met the national quality standards, the benchmark for safety and quality in childcare. The regulatory documents show systemic issues, including child protection failures, unsafe sleeping practices, dirty broken furniture, and poor supervision. Over 10 years, it clocked up 136 confirmed breaches and multiple emergency action notices. Many of the breaches were found to pose a significant risk to the safety of children. The regulator raised other concerns. So in 2006, there were allegations you accessed pornography in childcare services computers, including where the children were playing.
Okay.
Is it accurate or not?
That is false. Okay, I'll give you this number of reasons. One is, I have a parent not paying their fees.
So in 2006, that allegation that you are watching pornography on your computer, you're blaming it on a disgruntled parent.
And would you believe, I think that's the one, we had even the police turn up and they took my computer, sat down, went through it and found nothing.
November 2009, there's a report to Crime Stoppers that alleges you have approximately a dozen images of children without clothes on a computer. True?
False.
So in 2016, there's a report to Family and Community Services that multiple hard drives left behind at a service you owned contained videos of naked children and material with disturbing titles. So some of their titles that they had was "And the Wiener is Chitty Chitty Death Bang."
Yes.
What do you say to that?
It wasn't me.
So you're blaming the regulator?
Yes, they didn't like me. They didn't like my childcare centre. They're misogynistic towards males.
You make a very serious accusation that regulators want to get men out of the industry.
Yep.
So in the last 12 to 24 months, there has been a lot of news about alleged pedophiles or convicted pedophiles who have infiltrated childcare. Do you think that...
They shouldn't be allowed in childcare. I'm not a pedophile. There've been no convictions, just the department says, oh, here's some allegations, therefore we're going to forbid you to work in childcare. Allegations of their administrative allegations.
In May 2024, the inspectors came to the centre and they saw cameras pointed at the nappy change table and said that was inappropriate.
Okay, the nappy change, you're the baby, I'm the educator. The camera was up there behind the educator pointing across the window. We've got broken into several times and the camera was there. It was a dummy camera that was not operational. It was there for two reasons. To make sure the staff knew that they may be observed in their way they changed the nappy, and two, to stop burglary at night. It's pointed across the window.
So is the regulator lying?
Yes.
How many times have the police investigated you for these allegations?
Probably 3 times.
At 73, Chris Buckman is fighting to lift his childcare ban and restore his Working with Children check.
So that means I can't work in a milk bar. I can't work in Woolies. I can't work as a bus driver. Wherever there's a chance of a child entering the premises, I can't work.
And you want to work?
I have to work, got no money. I own own 2 houses, therefore I can't get the age pension. I can't even get a health card. So where am I supposed to get money from? The only way to get money is become a criminal. That's what they're forcing on me.
The New South Wales regulator said its investigation was extensive and a large volume of evidence was collected. It said the CCTV in the nappy room was genuine and functioning. It said recent state government reforms to the regulator would allow it to take stronger action sooner.
There was just a string of complaints. The regulator kept going in and getting them for all sorts of breaches. It was an absolute horror show, that place. And yet it took them, 11 years to shut them down? 11 years? How does that happen?
I think I have a really unique viewpoint in that I've worked in a number of roles. I've seen how the bigger companies operate, and I have a knowledge, I guess, of what goes on behind closed doors, and it's not always what parents think is happening.
Katrina Broadbent has nearly 20 years' experience, from auditing big childcare providers at PwC to her most recent job managing the compliance and quality team at Only About Children. She's seen it from the inside, and now she's blowing the whistle on a system she believes is failing children and families.
My team was responsible for carrying out quality and safety audits and also responding to incidents. So in that I mean reporting incidents to the regulator and any other governing body that's involved.
Only About Children, or OAC, is one of Australia's biggest for-profit childcare operators. Educators and parents call it only about cash. In New South Wales alone, OAC racked up 320 confirmed breaches between January 2024 to September this year. It's owned by US giant Bright Horizons, a $9 billion childcare giant listed on the New York Stock Exchange. Katrina left in April. And why did you leave?
I didn't agree with where the company was going in terms of the issues that are arising in the sector. I didn't want to be a part of something where I didn't think that they were prioritising what they should have been. They want to portray the image that they're putting safety first, but it's not always the case.
What do you think they're putting first?
Certainly the for-profit providers, I would say profits, because that's what they're in the game for. And whatever it means to achieve that, that's what they're going to do. The bigger providers in particular are operating on very tight budgets, and staffing is one way that they can cut costs. You can't provide quality and safe care of children when you're running at that really base level of one educator to, let's say, 4 or 5 babies. It's just impossible.
As we started investigating childcare, it quickly became apparent the for-profit sector was at the centre of the problems. Our Four Corners investigation sparked calls for reform.
Why did it take a television program to make this an urgent matter of business for the government?
Well, it shouldn't, but there's a bit of a history here at the ABC of Four Corners doing the right thing. The bottom line is that ministers haven't been doing enough fast enough, right?
Including you.
Including me, and I take my fair share of responsibility for it.
Our Four Corners investigation also triggered a parliamentary inquiry in New South Wales, which called some of the biggest operators to answer questions.
So my base pay is $625,000.
So my salary is $550,000.
The reporting has you getting around $3.3 million in 2024.
More than half of the amount that you've referred to are what's termed long-term incentives.
My salary is sort of just above $400,000.
Above $400,000.
On the issue of safety, they all sang from the same song sheet.
Safety and quality remain at the heart of everything we do.
Safety being its number one priority.
Put the health, safety and well-being of children first.
Safety is our highest priority.
But the evidence is damning, as Katrina knows all too well. She spent years auditing some of the country's biggest childcare providers.
Consistently across the board, it was things like issues with supervision, operating at really basic staffing ratios, enormous knowledge gaps in child protection, and also just a lack of accountability within the centres. So that lack of accountability was really obvious in the audits.
Katrina says the casualisation of the workforce is also putting kids at risk.
You have these floating staff that aren't necessarily managed by a particular person or a manager, and so they have the ability to move between centres and potentially be committing these acts of abuse, but completely going unnoticed.
When she was at Oak, she came across Kwok Fu Tong, who was a casual worker at 4 Oak centres. Tong was sentenced to 2 years jail in March after pleading guilty to sexually touching a child.
Tong is the type of offender who obtains arousal from simply being close to kids. So behaviors that most people would consider benign and normative, for a sex offender like Tong, these are very arousing types of activities. So for Tong to be close to the children, to kiss the children, to be engaged and active with the children, this is a part of what we call emotional over-identification with children. The other thing, though, is he may have been ramping up and he may have been grooming. This could have been something where he was testing the limits or even gaining enough courage to go one step further.
Our childcare documents reveal Oak ignored months of complaints from parents and educators as far back as June. Oak only took action in September after more serious allegations emerged.
In that case, there was fundamental challenges and issues with staff knowledge and education of child protection and what their responsibility is as mandatory reporters, but then also how to respond to concerns from parents and from other educators that something is happening, and even though they might be minor occurrences, when nothing's done with those minor occurrences, that's when it tends to snowball into something more serious occurring.
The regulator said it imposed a series of conditions. In a statement, Oak apologised for delays in reporting and said regulatory conditions had been progressively removed. It said, "We acknowledge the government inquiries and reviews which are driving important regulatory change in our sector and strongly support all reforms currently underway."
I think the regulator absolutely did not do enough. And we see this time and time again. The idea that you could have a service that has identified child sexual abuse who then doesn't tell the regulator on time, and then the regulator really doesn't respond in any significant way to that, it's pretty telling.
The Working with Children check is meant to be a safeguard. It's not. we found more than 700 cases of missing, expired or unverified working with children checks. In most cases, the regulator gave the centre weeks or months to fix it up. And that's just New South Wales. In Queensland, convicted child sex offender Andrew Vassell worked in childcare for 7 years without one, doing maintenance work and even playing Santa. It was a tip-off to the police that finally stopped him. It's 5 p.m. on July 16 and Queensland police are about to make an arrest. After 2 hours, we capture Vassell being led away in the dark. While there's no allegation he offended at the centre, the next day he pleaded guilty to not informing police where he was working. The fine was $2,000. But even workers with a working with children check aren't guaranteed to be safe.
I've received a phone call from a detective with the Australian Federal Police informing me that a worker at the daycare centre that our daughter attended had been arrested for possession of child sex abuse material. And the reason we were being contacted was because he had photos of our daughter.
Andrew Deerick, a Victorian childcare cook, had a working with children check until he was caught paying women overseas to abuse kids while he masturbated. He was convicted in 2022 and is serving 4 years and 8 months.
And did you have any interactions with him?
I actually had a lot of interactions with him. Like, he always fussed over her and she was a bit of a favourite kind of thing with him. And obviously all of that was like really chilling in retrospect. But if the Federal Police hadn't gotten in contact with us, like if there'd been no pictures of children from that centre on his phone, in addition to the other horrible things, no one would have ever known.
She's almost certainly someone that he was targeting and had a very specific interest in.
Part of the argument in the court was that this developed in his later years.
Yeah, one of the biggest myths that's out there about pedophiles is that somehow this is something that they catch when they're in their, in their 30s or 40s. That just doesn't happen in human sexuality. We don't suddenly change our predilections or our orientations or these sexual interests.
The weaknesses in childcare are being seized upon by predators online, allowing them to find each other, share strategies, and justify their actions.
Message received at 12:22 p.m. Hi Adele, we've just gotten the offender conversations back on the dark web and they're really alarming.
Professor of Criminology Michael Salter specialises in the study of organised sexual abuse, including in childcare. You look at childcare, there are 1.5 million kids that go to childcare every day. What you've been witnessing and researching, is childcare safe?
No, I don't think that childcare is safe. My real sense of alarm is that often we're only detecting those men through the online investigations into their images and videos. We're not detecting them on the ground in childcare centres through proactive safeguarding measures.
And why do you think that is?
Unfortunately, the regulatory bodies have not been given the teeth that they need, have not been given the resourcing that they need to maintain a really high level of safety standards.
Australian childcare centres are becoming a global target. The number of users on encrypted sites is multiplying. fueled by anonymising browsers such as Tor, which let predators hide online and access the dark web.
Over the last 20 years, we've had a proliferation of encrypted platforms, so that includes the so-called dark web or the Tor browser. We've created spaces beyond the reach of the law where child sex offenders can congregate in their millions. There's about 45,000 child sexual abuse websites just on the Tor project alone.
Professor Salter also advises the Canadian Centre for Child Protection, creator of Arachnid, a system that hunts child abuse material across the web, including the dark web.
One statement from an offender on the dark web that really stood out for me was he just said, he said, babies are meat. Babies are meat, and you can't tell me anything different.
We asked Arachnid analysts to scrape dark web forums on childcare to see how offenders talk and plan. They have pedophile handbooks that share strategies on technical security, how not to get caught, and where to find a child. One manual suggests getting a job in childcare and gives tips on interview questions and answers. Then once in, how to gain trust. This can only happen over time, it advises. This is what predators are saying.
Bring toys to train target. Make sure you aren't in view of any cameras, unless it's your own, and then film away. Do foreplay or massage target to relax them.
Their conversations on these forums are deeply confronting, most of it too explicit to broadcast, revealing just how calculating and twisted they really are.
My wife owns the daycare, and yes, she's a pedo, so I have access to babies. I like kissing the little ones on the mouth, licking and sucking. Little do they know I've been abusing the fuck out of their precious baby boy the whole time. It actually makes me chuckle. There's a secret room where I can play with them. If anyone wants to know more, I'll tell you in private.
Images are routinely traded on dark web forums. Babies filmed, children forced to pose, predators hiding behind masks.
Some of them have the baby or the child hold a piece of paper with the handle and the date. What's that about?
Yeah, that's to prove that the person who's trying to submit those images is to prove that they, in fact, were the ones that abused that child. And the date is that, that it just happened, so that it's proof that this is an original image. These offenders are really interested in having original material. They don't want someone to send them things that they've already seen before. And yes, it's increasing at an almost exponential rate.
What's the main insight you've got out of speaking to them?
There's not one reason why people commit these acts of harm. There's different motivational pathways, and pedophilia is the one that a lot of people know about. Pedophilia is a sexual interest in prepubescent children. We have individuals who are exclusive, and they are only interested in children, and then others who are non-exclusive, which, as the name implies, they also may have adult relationships, they may be married, and they also are capable and do harm children. But we also have sadists, and we have psychopaths, and we have individuals we call hedonistically indiscriminate. And then we have the largest group of offenders, which are none of those, which are opportunistic offenders, or people that offend just because someone is in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Childcare is broken.
We are at a historic moment where, across all levels of government, there is a real sense of urgency that we have to get early childcare right. And there's a scrutiny on the sector at the moment where the public is just becoming aware that every week we are seeing these egregious child abuse cases. So we have an opportunity now to get this right, but I am worried that the spotlight will move on.
The Prime Minister has refused to consider a royal commission into childcare.
People call for royal commissions whenever anything comes out immediately. They take years, they cost a lot of money.
The Royal Commission into institutional responses to child sexual abuse skipped over the early childcare sector, and so we really need to grab the bull by the horns now.
Governments are rolling out piecemeal fixes, hoping it will calm things down. The Federal Childcare Minister, Jess Walsh, declined a sit-down interview, but said the government was taking swift action. In a written response, she sidestepped several questions, instead pointing to the reforms already announced. New South Wales told us they've introduced nation-leading reforms, prioritising child protection.
I think a lot of the reforms that they're making or planning to make are Band-Aid solutions. I don't think it's going to address a lot of these fundamental issues in the long run.
At the same time, the ACT and Victoria are fighting to keep childcare files secret, terrified of what full transparency might reveal.
There is this secrecy because everyone is so concerned about their own reputation.
There are thousands of dedicated educators, and there are good for-profit and non-profit centres too. But for families, navigating this sector is a minefield. Restoring trust starts with reform. At the very least, a National Childcare Commission that oversees the sector and real scrutiny of private operators. What other things do you think we need?
So a good intelligence sharing system throughout Australia. At the moment, we don't have any way of saying, well, there's been a complaint against a particular person and there's concerns that are being raised about how they've dealt with children previously.
You have to have the right laws in place.
An honesty that this is happening.
Right. It's not going to work if we ostrich and put our heads in the sand and just hope it's not in our backyards. It is in our backyards. They've infiltrated childcare.
Parents are just so desperately busy and we all feel guilty about it. I know I do, but we've just got no choice to put them into the centres.
It's the tip of the iceberg. Where else would pedophiles go to get access to kids without any ramifications? There is nobody watching them. Why is it the way it is? Why is it okay to abuse babies that can't talk? It has been a rough road because then you feel rage towards the system.
To give your infant to a childcare provider and saying, please take care of this child, you're placing a lot of trust in that individual. And for you to not realize that that is a predator who can't wait until you drive away, it's one of the worst things a new parent could possibly imagine.
If this program has raised concerns for you, you can contact one of these services.